Good afternoon and welcome to the Advice Media webinar broadcast here in the month of September. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone here and especially to welcome our guest, Jay Shorr. I want to begin by introducing Jay. Jay is first and foremost a friend. He's someone that I've gotten to know through the industry over the past 10 plus years. I think that we've known each other. We've both been in the industry a long time. Jay is the founder and managing partner of the Best Medical Business Solutions. It's a Florida-based medical practice consulting firm. He assists practices with their operations and their administrative and financial needs to really help them be successful. Jay has served as the Vice President of Operations and Practice Administrator for a leading board-certified dermatologist and cosmetic surgeon in South Florida until her passing in June of 2012. He's currently a partner in another leading facility in South Florida, and I'll tell you, part of what I think makes Jay unique is the fact that he's been there and done that. He has seen what makes practices successful, and you've got a wonderful opportunity to listen to Jay Shorr today talk about many of the things he's learned, and in particular this topic, which as I began talking to Jay about what we should do today, really felt like the thing that people are asking all the time is, I need more information on the lead generation and how to really convert patients, and more importantly, understanding the ROI from the various efforts that you put in, whether it's your external or internal marketing, but understanding where that comes out. So, Jay, without further ado, I turn it over to you, and again, welcome you and thank you for your time today as our guest webinar specialist.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you to Advice Media for the opportunity. Once again, as being a practice management consultant in this industry, I may have had the pleasure and the honor of working with many of you throughout the course of the last several years, either at some of the most leading industry conferences that I'm an educational chairman for and a course director for, in addition to moderating and having lectured at many of these. In addition to that, I write for a lot of the industry trade publications, and what I do is try to work with my client base on mainly problematic issues and related opportunities in order to bring additional financial value, reduction of costs, and operational, financial, and administrative guidance. That's really where we, as a practice management consulting firm, working with industry leaders like Advice Media and other companies in the electronic medical records, lead management, generations of leads, social media, and assisting clients like yourself or prospective clients like yourself in learning how to run your business. Now, we work with clients strictly and exclusively in the aesthetic, cosmetic, plastic surgery arena and med spas. We don't work outside of that vertical because our experience, really in my experience, having been in this industry for many, many years, has led us to be able to service those people and give the information to what matters most. And that is, how do I obtain the client? And once I've gotten the client, how do I identify whether or not my marketing efforts have been successful? Because one of my favorite lines is, you don't know. And that's pretty dangerous because I always like to know what I don't know because that's what I focus on and that's what I try to improve upon most. Now, going forward, you as a practice have to be able to create an identifiable brand. And what that really separates you from all of those other practices out there in your geographical area, whether it's in your own building or right down the street. Now let me give you an example. We have many clients in the Southern California area, Southern Florida area, and in the Sun Belts prevalent because we are a 10 to 12 month a year Sun Belt. And what I've noticed most is some of the areas of the South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and even there in Southern California, for example, Beverly Hills, there are dozens and dozens of practices just like yourself, all competing. And as we take practices and doctors straight out of residencies and fellowships and working with a lot of non-core physicians, defined that as such as outside of the dermatology, plastic surgery, facial plastic surgery vertical, getting into the aesthetic and cosmetic arena, what makes you different? And you have to be able to create that identifiable brand that makes you different than everybody else, because do you have any special niche that separates you from that of the real, more cosmetic, facial, and body plastic surgeon? And it's very difficult when you're first coming out or entering into this field to separate yourself amongst those real high-level super professionals. And there are some very, very good ones out there with a lot of very good name brand recognition. And unfortunately, there are not such good ones with a lot of brand and name recognition. So where do we separate the men and women from the boys and girls? And that has to become with the different types of advertising, marketing, and social media that we do each and every day. Now, a lot of you have said to me, Jay, I just plain can't afford to do it. I don't have that budget. One of my simple lines is, going forward, unfortunately, you can't afford not to do it. Because years ago, when I got into this industry, it was almost a disgrace to advertise your name as a into the marketplace. You hung a shingle and you began, mainly because if you started out with an insurance-based practice, you were either in the book, if you recall what they used to be, and now it's online. So those dynamics have changed. And years ago, there was no such thing as Instagram and Snapchat and a website and Facebook and all of the other dynamics that now separate you and be able to give you the exposure into the community that everybody else is doing now. And I'm not going to name specific doctors because that's not really where I want to go. But you all know of who I'm speaking about. They do procedures on Snapchat, and they have an Instagram, and they do all this major social media marketing. And I lecture on the circuit with Chad and a lot of other professionals with people that are very well known in a very short period of time because they've had a huge social media presence, and they've done search engine optimization and pay-per-click marketing to their weekly, bi-weekly, monthly email blasts. And I'm going to go over some of these and how to determine your, for A, the dollars, and B, the time that you spend on this specific type of marketing. Now, I don't want to really go through a whole educational background, and I hope that many of you really understand, but I'm going to give a brief 101 lecture on SEO PPC. Strictly, SEO is the search engine optimization and how companies like Advice Media are able to get your keywords, your dynamics of the specific types of procedures organically. And that's what SEO has to represent, organic. How does it populate strictly by search terms on the internet searches that your prospective patients do? That really different than the PPC or pay-per-click, where you pay a defined dollar for a keyword, and when a patient prospect clicks on that, that either goes to your landing page or your home page designed for that specific keyword, you pay a designed bid fee that you've agreed on. Simple enough, and I'm sure most of you understand that. And then you have email blasts that you get and a lot of times you receive from hopefully subscribed lists. And that can be through constant contact, or vertical response, or MailChimp, or your SEO hosting provider. I don't have a preference to either one, nor is this really something that I'm going to try to explain. I can do this separately. I just don't want to promote any specific vendor because that's not the purpose of what you're all here for. Thirdly, you have to have a plan and a budget. And when I work with a lot of businesses, I speak about having a business plan. I don't want to insult anybody, but if you don't have your first quarter business plan already mapped out as we're going into our fourth quarter of this year, you're really behind the 8 ball because you wouldn't go somewhere you didn't know without either an itinerary, the old MapQuest, Google Maps, whatever it is that gets you to a navigation without having a plan. And in our business, not only do we have to have a marketing plan, an operational plan, an administrative plan for our business, but in our marketing, we have to have a plan that defines a budget. And that's how much are we going to spend and what are the results that we expect out of the budget. And that is going to be our conversion cascade because there's so many different types of marketing that we want to do in our advertising and marketing mix. And it's okay because we can redefine that as we go along by adding or deleting what isn't working, but we need to be able to have a plan. Because as we're working with vendors like Advice Media, they need to be able to figure a way to design your marketing going forward. And lastly, how do you measure it? Because what gets measured gets managed. Now, there's several steps to what I call a conversion cascade. And your brand, and as you advertise, whatever it is, and however it is that you do it, is what we call your awareness. If it's your ROI, that's determined by your SEO, your PPC, your email, your radio, your TV, your newspaper, your magazines. Years ago, it used to be Yellow Pages, but not anymore. These all create brand awareness. And hopefully, the next step of your awareness leads to a call. A call can either be on a website of an appointment request or a physical phone call. Do you have a tracking number on any campaign that you do so that you're able to determine what the effectiveness is on each campaign? Now, having run a very, very large and very successful cosmetic plastic surgery practice, one of the first things I used to ask a patient when they came in, or a prospect when they called, is how did you hear of us? And what I heard most was Google. And I said, well, thank you. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that's not really what I'm asking, but that's really what they're hearing. Because they didn't type in Google, and that's where I showed up, they had to have a search term. So whatever that is, we have to determine what is it that made our phone call ring. The next step of our conversion cascade is from the call, how successful were we in able to secure and lure that prospect to become a consult in our office. And from the consult, we got them in, how effective were we in converting that to a treatment? And after the treatment, we had to determine what financial remuneration or reward did we get from that treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, that's simply dollars and cents. And then did that lead to a retreatment, other services? Did they refer us to other patients? Was it our word of mouth? And lo and behold, there went the circle of our conversion cascade. Now, the awareness of the call, I'll give you a couple of examples as we move forward. As you can see, We have a Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram logo. In the right side, you will see a picture of an e-blast, and that happens to be me and my business partner, Mara, who also happens to be my daughter. But we have branded ourselves in this industry as a father-daughter team. That is my brand. All right. Yes, the logo explains what it is we do. We are the best medical business solutions, your prescription for success, but I wanted to be branded so we have some type of recognition in the industry. And when we send out an e-blast, we try to brand it so it's the same. So your advertising, whether it's paid print media, your advertising is what you do within your practice internally. Advertising is internal advertising. And then what publicity and press do you have out to the media? Hope have a new procedure, or you're doing something that is separate and apart that others aren't. A lot of your media out in the industry like to pick up on that type of a story and will give you some of that for free. If you have a PR company, they'll try and get your brand out to the public. That's part of how you do your awareness. Now, your call to the consult, what's most important is your director of first impressions. Many of you refer to that position as a receptionist, but it's very important because that is really your director of first impressions. In our practice, we answered the phone like this. Dermatology, cosmetic surgery, this is Jay, and I can help you. Now, that might seem corny because you've never heard that before. However, the reason we did that is I wanted the receiver on the other end of that communication to know that they've reached the right place, and whoever answers that phone can actually help them. They may not have the answer to the call, but in helping them, they know who to direct that call to. Remember, the first person that answers that phone is usually the least paid. I don't understand why, because they'll usually make or break that experience, and the wonderful doctor, PA, nurse practitioner, mid-level provider, esthetician, chance to see them if the person that answered your phone first turned that patient prospect off. So what we like to refer to them is the director of first impressions, because that's exactly what they're doing. And also, the patient or patient prospect that is listening to that can hear a smile or a disgruntled employee. So you have to make that first experience a lasting experience by wanting the patient or patient prospect to come into your facility. A lot depends on how that director of first impression actually credentials your provider. Example, you're going to love Dr. J, Dr. Mary, whomever the name of that provider, or your mid-level practitioner or esthetician if it's a spa. You give the person by name. The patients love so-and-so, raving about him. In fact, they treat all of us here at the staff. Just wait until you meet XYZ. You're going to be so happy that you came in. Another way, when that person answers the phone, you ask, are you a new patient or an existing patient? And if they're a new patient, you share this way. Thank you for calling. Please allow me to be one of the first to welcome you to our practice. I know it's something different, but it's an experience they haven't heard before. And when the person finally does come into the practice, hopefully you're not sitting down behind a desk and allowing them to walk in, but you're greeting them like a concierge first-class service. Now, some of you might be saying, I can't do that, I don't have the time. But you need to provide an experience different than those who are doing that. And when they walk into your office, have that director of first impressions say, please allow me to be the first to welcome you into our practice. So let's go on. How does your reception and what does it look like? because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Now, this is an actual picture of a practice that I visited. I don't mean to insult any of you by any means, but how many of you have actually walked into a practice and seen all these weather-beaten, tape-beaten, 8.5 by 11 word-printed documents on the window? It gives a horrific impression. If you're an insurance-based and a spa-related practice, what this says is it's a bad impression, and that's not the impression you want to do. When I took this picture, the client said to me, "What are you taking a picture of?" And I said, it was around holiday time, and I said, "I love the tinsel garland on your window." Now, I didn't know what to say that I'm using this, and I know it's not meant to insult anybody. However, this is not what you want your patient prospect that walks in your door. So what should your reception area look like? It should really be full of personalized advertising. It shouldn't have magazines that are also weather-beaten and from last year and a year ago, because quite honestly, I'm not in this business to market Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, which is the hottest news today. I went on to Yahoo News, and about the first 10 pages were about that. I'm not concerned about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. What I am concerned about are all the wonderful procedures that you're doing in your office, and that's what you have to market. Don't be marketing all of the vendors' brochures that have their name on them, that have every other practice that I work with may have the same identical brochures. Customize your things to make sure that it talks about you and all of the other wonderful things and services that you provide. Because please be advised that many of your clients may not really understand everything that you do. Example, we had a dermatology, functional medical, and an aesthetic practice. And many of our aesthetic practices asked us, do we know where they could find a good dermatologist? And conversely to that, our derm practice patients would ask us, do you know who does aesthetic procedures? This was some. And I realized that we didn't do a great job of communicating this to our existing patients. Hence, that's the advertising that we have to do. So give them a beautiful, wonderful greeting and offer them a beverage if you can. And I know how difficult it is at times to be on time. But that's very important because we need to show a respect of people's time. And once again, customize your advertising brochures and don't necessarily give out the vendors' brochures. I know they're free, but that's exactly what they are. They're just free, and every one of your other competitors has the identical ones. Have a TV playing promotional videos of what you do in your office. There are companies out there, and I'm not there to promote MediPlay. However, there are other companies out there that you're able to customize what's on your TV and the screen. Don't be running Judge Judy. Don't be running soap operas, because that does nothing for your specific brand. Remember that a messy area does nothing to enhance your message. It clutters your message. Your office should look at 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock like it does at 8 o'clock in the morning. None of the ugly newspapers and water bottles should be sitting on your floor. The consult to your treatment, what's most important is to listen to that patient and then educate them about the wonderful procedures you do, and hopefully it will lead to a consult that leads to the next treatment. What we have to do is wow that patient with that experience, because many times you are not the first or the last. particular type of provider that they're going to go to. So you have to show value and give amazing results. You've heard this term many, many times before about under-promising and over-deliver, but that's what you have to do. And offer them the opportunity without overselling to understand everything else that you do in your office, whether that is with a brochure, personalized, because you don't want to waste real estate on your advertising message. Get your brand out and allow the people that are looking at it to understand the other services that you provide. They may not be interested in those services today, but they may be interested in those services tomorrow. It's all about the compelling events in their life that might bring them to needing those services at another time, but they didn't want to feel oversold. But you can always upsell the upsell when you have that opportunity. And what does that mean? It means that they've come in, they want that opportunity. They may come in for a microdermabrasion, but why not upsell that microdermabrasion by selling them a series of that package, because they'll get better results, and also some of the wonderful products that go along with that procedure that will be able to keep their treatments hydrated when they come in for Botox, when they come in for, let me be fair, Dysport and Xeomin, or they come in, try to see whether or not there's anything else that they may be interested in. Word of mouth travels very, very fast, and you know that. And that's why it leads to a very good awareness out in the community to see whether or not you can implant reward program referrals in your practice. But you need to understand that some state laws prohibit doing that. So you need to check with what your state allows you to do. There's patient brokering acts in some states that disallow you offering a patient any types of compensation in kind of any manner for the referral of other patients. But you can give discounts because you're a great patient without actually giving anything of a reward in print. That. Have different types of events that allow the patient and their friend to be able to get some type of package or some type of potential skincare products or a bag of goodies for allowing them to bring friends. So let's regroup. Call is your marketing. It leads to the call leads to a consult, the consult leads to a treatment which gives you revenue dollars. Hopefully it leads to retreatments and other services. Now, I'm going to give the next 3 slides are going to actually give you, it might be boring to some, but those who really want to understand what this all means in mathematics, you'll be able to see in dollars and cents really what that refers to. And here's the stage of your conversion. Let's say that you only convert 50% of those leads. An example is you spent $8,000 in your advertising, and we want to know, was it worth it? Well, assume that you got 20 calls from that advertisement. Now, MGMA, which is a management conference, a management company that gives a lot of medical data and facts, says that it cost an average of $400 to get a patient. All right, so if you end up getting 20 calls and your conversion is only 50% of those that lead to a consult, 20 calls, 50% of those are 10 consults. But out of those 10 consults, you only convert 5 of them. That means you only have 5 treatments. Let's summarize. 50% lead to a consult. That means 10 consults. 50% of those only lead to a treatment. That's 5 treatments. If you had an average of $2,500 a treatment, it brought you $12,500 in revenue. Now you only spent $8,000. So you're going to say, I did well. And I'm going to say you didn't. Because if you take the $12,000 in revenue and you divide it by your spend, it's going to give you a ratio of 1.6 to 1 or a 60% return. That's not good. Because what that really meant is you have fixed and variable costs in your business. Your rent, your mortgage, your payroll. So just because you brought in equal to or a little bit more than it cost doesn't mean you made money. Let me give you another example. Let's say you did a 75% conversion of consults, but only a 50% result of that. Let's take the same $8,000. 75%, you got 20 phone calls and you converted 75% of those to a consult, which gives you 15, but you only converted the same 50% of those, gives you 7.5 treatments at the same $2,500. Now it gave you $18,750 for that same $8,000 advertisement. We're doing a little better, 2.3 or 130%. It's not great, but it's getting there. And then lastly, one more. You converted those same 20 calls to 15 consults. You converted 75% of those to 12 treatments. Times your 2,500 yielded you $30,000 in revenue. If you took that 8,000, it brought in 3.75 or a 300% return. You're looking for about 3 to 3.5 return on your dollar. Why? Because an average business nets about 35% margin. Now, I didn't want to bore you with the math, but it's very important for you to understand that you need a 35% margin or better to break even because of all the expenses that go in with your business, not just your marketing spend. Remember, it costs money to open your doors, all right? So, measure all that you do or as much as you can, because otherwise it's a waste. You're not really understanding what it is that you do. Now remember, I talked about a tracking number. The reason for that is, most importantly, I want to know what's not working so that I can spend my hard-earned dollars on what is working. Your SEO is probably your biggest return and bang for your buck. Because, you know, in medicine, it's called the half-life of a drug. The half-life is how long that drug will remain in your system and last. Well, advertising, marketing is very short. It could be a day, 2 or 3. But you're optimizing. When you have companies like Advice Media who does your SEO for your websites, remember the half-life on that is as long as you continue to optimize organically. And when patients continue to go into your site, you'll be first in line, second, third, as long as you can continue to do that. Because your PPC is only good for as long as you continue to pay. There's 2 things in a PPC. One is an image and an impression. The impression only shows up when somebody types in the keyword. But unless they click on it, they're not going to get the full campaign that you did, and they're probably not going to call you. So you really need to be able to measure what you're spending, or as much as you can, in your plan. And identify that stage arrest and attend to those issues, because if you know in your plan that you're spending X amount of dollars and it's not bringing you the return, the best thing to do is to spend the dollars that are going to bring you that return. Use practice management software to be able to do that. There are different types of EMRs, and there are different types of CRMs, all right? Your customer relationship management software. I'm not going to name any because that's not what this is about. However, they'll be able to give you these details about your campaign as long as you put the proper information in it. Now, there's a term called shift of the paradigm, and that means change. Because one reason that people resist change is because they focus on what they have to give up, but instead focus on what you have to gain. If I have to give up the way that I've done marketing in the past because it didn't work, then let me focus on what I have to do and what I have to gain. Because there's an old terminology that I use, and it says, when you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And it's held true for my entire life because it's what I'm used to doing. I've become so resistant in certain things of my life because I was afraid of the shift of the paradigm. I've always been comfortable. You get a new employee that says, but I've always done it that way. But you know what? If it hasn't been as successful as to where I want to go, then we've got to change it. And being of a baby boomer generation, I've learned a lot from millennial and Gen X generation. Because when I grew up and was in business, there was no social media and Instagram and Facebook type of marketing, for examples. And I've learned that this is not going away. This is a wave of the future. Remember, I mentioned Yellow Pages. It was the hottest, biggest, latest, greatest thing. If you didn't have a quarter, half page, or bigger in the Yellow Pages, you just weren't being found. Now I tell people, don't spend a dime on Yellow Pages because it's such a waste. They don't even use them in barbershops as baby boosters anymore, you know? So we focus on what we have to gain and shifted to the new way of marketing. And that's why companies that specialize in SEO, PPC, and social media that help you get there faster. Don't be afraid to spend the money, but naturally have a budget. Work it out with your designers so that you know that they're able to help you with the design budget that you have. There's a thing called the training. And a chief financial officer asked chief executive officer, what happens if we're selling to our people and they leave us? It's a big concern. And the CEO says, well, what happens if we don't and they stay? Think about this for a minute. Nothing can be truer than that. We have to invest in our people, we have to invest in our strategies, and we have to invest in our vendors. Because if we don't and they stay, our people, we've made a very, very poor investment. I'm going to give you an example. Several years ago, I had a staff of 22 in my office. And I brought every one of them to a very well nationally known conference. Said to me, I cannot believe that you spent in excess of $25,000 and closed your office for 5 days to bring them to this very well-known conference. I said, I didn't spend anything, I invested it. And when they came home, they had fire in their belly and made me more than I spent. And that was called an investment. And when I do business plan lectures, I speak about cost, spend, and investments. Now, Albert Einstein said that if you can't explain something very simply, then you really don't understand it well enough. Nothing could be truer. Because I don't want to do it because I don't understand it. Well, how can you explain anything to your staff if you don't understand it? And most importantly, how can they explain it to your patient if they don't understand it? You know all those Steve Jobs, talking about hiring of people. He said it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. Instead, hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. Now, I don't know many of you that really can argue with somebody as brilliant as Steve Jobs, who was able to create and have one of the most successful companies literally in the world. All right? Now, if it's not going to be people that you hire, then maybe it's a vendor or a consultant in your business that can tell you what to do to enrich your practice and help you generate more revenue. Now, a company like Advice Media is not there to tell you what to do. They're there to give you the advice on how to enrich the money that you're going to spend and the practices that you perform to help you get the most for your money in being able to generate your message and your brand to the marketplace. Now, there's 10 things in life that require zero talent. Real quickly, be on time, have a great work ethic, give effort. Your body language speaks miles, and you've got to have great positive energy. Remember I said your director of first impressions has to be energetic because the prospective patient can hear that body language. Have a positive attitude, speak with passion, be able to be coachable in your life, and allow people that help you in your business, your vendors, your consultants, allow them to speak to you and be coachable. Go that extra mile, do something extra, and most importantly of all, be prepared so when that phone rings, all the money you're spending to get your message out into the marketplace is certainly worth the time, the effort, and the financial investment that you've spent. Here's a good one. Ships sink because of the water around them. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside of you and weigh you down. Eliminate the drama in your life. Eliminate the drama that your staff brings to you. And don't let the external, and most importantly, the internal things in your business drag you down and weigh you down from moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to spend the last 45 minutes with you. I know that you all have a very, very busy schedule. I wanted to try to make this very short, sweet, to the point. These are hour to 2 hour lectures that Chad, my faculties at different conferences give. I just wanted to give you the facts, give you the most precise information that I could in the most defined amount of time, and hope that these last 45 minutes have been worth the time that you spent. And on behalf of Advice Media, please allow me to personally thank you for the time that you've spent. I will open it up to any questions. Thank you, Chad, and if I could be of any assistance, in as much as time will allow, I'll stay around.
Great, thank you very much, Jay. Excuse me. Jay, today you hit on some very, very powerful topics, and I wrote down some notes of some things. I just like the way you word things, and things I've known you explained it just really makes sense and really hits home. Kind of putting out there just for a minute, if anybody has any questions, they're on your right side of your screen, part of the GoToWebinar. There's an area where you can type in your question. Please go ahead and do that. I can actually, even if you raise your hand on there, I can actually connect you and you can ask it directly over the audio. So if you do have a question, now's a great time to do that. Jay, one of the questions I have for you is you talk about the director of first impressions. So within the offices, everyone's so busy all the time. How does the medical director or the PA or whoever it is, how do you recommend that they follow up to make sure that that person they've hired who represents them and makes that first impression is doing a great job?
Well, with many of our clients, there's an investment that takes place. Now, many practices have an office manager and or a practice administrator, and they really are two different positions. An office manager usually handles administrative functions with the staff. Many times, if it's a smaller practice, they can act as one, but a practice manager actually works with the total operation of the business. And hire an outside company or do it yourself, have a friend or family do something where you make a mystery shopping call to your practice, or if you work with certain tracking numbers, you can actually listen to the calls. Training is very key, Chad. In our office, we used to close down every other week, and we would work a half a day every other Wednesday and a half a day every other Friday, and we closed the office to do training. Training, whether it was operational, administrative. We shared minimal financial, but we did share some because we wanted them to be engaged. We brought in vendors so that they would be aware of what the different lasers, actually did. We brought in skincare reps to explain actually what the skincares were made of. We brought in some of our directors of business development from our neuromodulator and our dermal filler companies and explained it. And I also did training. We also had online training that I subscribed to, and each and every employee had to, subscribe and engage in.
Thank you. That's it's such a powerful point there as well, because I think a lot of practices, and those who are listening today, they may just be thinking right now, you were closing down your office for half a day twice a month, and probably they're still in shock. I'm sure many of them are. But that's an opportunity cost, right? It's what are you going to lose by not doing that? If everyone's not on the same page. But I think the reality is, and what we've seen as well, is that when you invest in your people, you take time to make it a priority, they then know your practice better, they know what you're about, they reflect everything that you're doing in that brand, and make it work even stronger. So now they're actually more engaged, you're going to be more successful. That time closed down is of little consequence.
Chad, I want to bring something real quick. I spoke with a client yesterday, and I wanted to know the effectiveness of their website. I will give you kudos, it was not your company that's doing their web. And what he said to me is, I don't know why my website company is not increasing my business. And I said, well, how many leads did you? He said, well, in X amount of period of time, I got over 30 leads. I said, I think the website company is doing their job. I said, well, how many did you close? He said, 2. I said, I don't think your staff is doing their job. Now, well, maybe my website is bringing me bad leads. Well, the job of a website company is to bring you leads, right? Some of them are going to be bad, some of them are going to be tire kickers, but that's going to be any website company. So what has to happen is, yes, whether some of you are shaking your head about closing the office, I challenge you to find out what is your drip campaign after these callers come in. Did you get their phone numbers? Did you get the email addresses? How did you follow up? When did you follow up? Was it 1 follow-up, 2 follow-ups? You have nothing to lose by continuous follow-up. And unfortunately, like I said before, maybe you just don't know what you don't know. And I don't mean to insult any of you out there. Please, by all means, I'm here to help you, and I'll be more than happy to give you some information. You can have a copy of this presentation if you'd like. But if you don't know the amount of leads and what has come of it, many times the person who is actually doing the sales doesn't want their boss to know how they failed miserably. And it's really important to know. Listen to that phone and see what's happened. I can put you in touch with a company that will give you the tracking number and give you the ability to listen to each and every call. That is powerful.
Absolutely is. It's a great tool. And you talked about measuring earlier, and measure what you can. That's one of the things that can be measured and should be measured. One of the questions from our guest today, Jay, says, I've had a few clients motivate their office staff with a commission-based structure to motivate the staff. These clients also seem to have the best conversion from lead to client. What are your thoughts about this method?
Well, check with your state, because there are some illegalities about how you pay for the leads. If it is a fee per procedure versus a fee on the gross revenue is totally different. Look, money talks, nobody walks. That's an old expression. I don't have a problem with bonusing and commissioning. However, make sure that what you're commissioning isn't something that the patient would have signed up for anyway, and that you're not discounting where otherwise you may not need to discount, and you're paying a commission on something only because you've discounted it where it may not be profitable to you, the practice. Remember, things bring revenue. They don't necessarily bring profit. And I think I've tried to show you that in some of the statistics in some of those slides.
Yes, and I've, for the individual asking, I've actually heard Jay speak on this topic, and it's about I would say an hour to 90-minute conversation for this, and so if you'd like more information and maybe to talk to Jay offline and maybe even engage his services, which let me tell you, he's a fantastic consultant, and this is what he does for a living. He can come in and I'll let you know his fees to do that, but he can come in and analyze your business and let you know what would work best for you in your state and what you have set up. Of course, his information's there. Another question.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah,
I really would like to share with everybody here for free. If you have a quick question that you'd like to answer me, I'm an educator, and I speak at multiple conferences to get the message out, to allow you to be more successful. Having been an administrator in a very large successful practice for many years, I am one of you. I feel for all of you. And it's not really always about the money. Yes, I'm in business to make money, and I have a consulting company. However, don't be afraid to call and ask my opinion on something. If you want to engage my services, fine. But I have a lot of free offers and opportunities that we give to practices like that don't cost you any money, but just save you money. I don't want to do a selling on this presentation. That's not what this is about for me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And this is about education and making sure people are there. And Jay, you mentioned a great point. You do have a lot of services that can save practices a lot of money and don't cost them anything, from credit card processing but again, if you do have questions about that, please do reach out to Jay. He's a valuable resource. Another question that came in, kind of tied into our last question, Jay, is what about tying a team bonus to annual revenue or annual profits? Have you done that or seen that work before?
I did. I did that in my practice where the entire staff was bonused quarterly based on profitability. Once again, revenue is important. And I don't always share profitability with my staff, but I do have benchmarks because you've got to be able to generate revenue to make profit. Now, where I did it most is there is no secret to your staff that, for example, skincare products usually are a 100% markup with a 50% net margin. And there's no secret to that with your staff. Your front desk knows it. Your estheticians know it. So what I did is we generated a lot of profit from skincare, and skincare product and sales of merchandise in your office should generate approximately 10% or greater in your office. And I used to give everyone as a team bonus, whether it was $250 or $500 a quarter, had nothing to do with their annual holiday bonus, all right? A bonus because who really sold the product? It could have been recommended by the doctor or practitioner in the exam room. And then it was the MA or whomever that brought them up to the front. They brought the route slip or whatever it is to the checkout person. They walked away. And now the patient is no longer engaged the way they were. But now the front desk, your director of first impressions who's checking the person out, really ends up being that final person that sells it. Another example. If you have a beautiful spa or practice, we had a lot of walk-in retail from existing patients or people that would call, saw our products optimized, would call the office and walked in. Who really sold that product? If you have an esthetician that wants to be bonused, commissioned on skincare product, well, it's not fair to the other people who may have fielded that phone call. So you can do it by a percentage of the skincare products, or you can set down a team goal based on revenue, and maybe the staff just has to trust you if you don't want to share what your revenues are.
Great insight. Kind of wrapping up today, Jay, let me just let everyone know that both Jay's company and Advice Me will be in LA this weekend at the ASPS meeting. Those of you who are part of a plastic surgery practice who will be in attendance in Los Angeles. We invite you to come find us, talk to us. We'd love to meet you in person and see you, and so and share with you. So again, we'd love to be able to see you and talk to you. Jay, any final words today before we wrap up?
Yes, I will also be at the AAF PRS conference in Nashville, and then I'll be at the Aesthetic Academy in California, both in October. I will be presenting. I'll be part of a media panel. I'll be the actual moderator and lecturer and the program chair for the exam at the Aesthetic Academy and the Certified Aesthetic Consultant program. And if there's anybody copy of this, my email is there. If there's anybody who would want to call me, there's my email, there's my phone number. Please feel free, if you have a question, reach out. I'm an educator once again. This was sponsored by Advice Media to give all of you an education portrait of background. This was not meant to be a revenue generator.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for giving us some of your knowledge today, Jay, and through your experience. And just so everyone knows, Jay, his schedule fills up quickly. If you do want to meet with him this weekend, email him and get a pre-show meeting, kind of get that set up. You can also do that with me, chad.erickson@advicemedia.com, so we can schedule something. Again, look forward to helping you. That's our real goal, is we want you to succeed, and that's where we're going to help you and educate you and do whatever we can so that you are armed and have the tools to be successful. This presentation today has been recorded, and it will be available starting tomorrow, and you'll actually be sent a link to that. So again, thanks to everyone who came here today. You'll be able to watch this in its entirety, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next month if we don't see you sooner. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.